It's just after 7 p.m. on a hot August night in 1955, inside a small, isolated Kentucky farmhouse, a house full of people, 11 in total, a mix of family and friends, are winding down for the evening. The air is thick, the crickets are chirping. It's a perfectly normal night. But just outside, in the gathering darkness, the family dog starts barking its head off. Something is out there, and in a few moments, this quiet farmhouse is going to become a battlefield. For the next 4 hours, the family will be locked in a terrifying fight for their lives against small, shiny creatures with claws and huge glowing eyes that seem to be completely immune to bullets. This is the true story of the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter, a night of sheer terror that became one of the most bizarre and well-documented cases in paranormal history. The date was August 21st, 1955. The place was a small, unpainted farmhouse tucked away in the fields between the tiny community of Kelly and the town of Hopkinsville, Kentucky. This was the home of the Sutton family matriarch Glennie Langford. It was a simple place with no running water or telephone. Life here was dictated by the sun. That Sunday evening, Glennie had a full house. Her son, Elmer Lucky Sutton, was visiting from his job with a travelling carnival, bringing his wife, Vera, Lucky's friends and co-workers. Billy Ray Taylor and his wife June were there too. Lucky's brother, J.C. Sutton, and his wife Aline rounded out the group, along with several children. These were ordinary church-going people known in their community as quiet and trustworthy. The matriarch, Glennie, was a devout woman who didn't even allow alcohol on her property. The evening started like any other, but it would soon descend into a nightmare that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The whole thing started with a simple trip to the well for a cool drink of water. Around 7 p.m, Billy Ray Taylor stepped outside and saw something that made him stop in his tracks. A bright silvery object shaped like an egg was streaking silently across the sky. He said it had an exhaust that glowed with all the colours of the rainbow. He watched it fly over the house, stop on a dime, and then drop out of sight into a gully about a quarter mile away. He raced back inside, excited and a little spooked, to tell everyone what he'd seen, but the family just laughed. They teased him, saying he must have just seen a shooting star. After all, this was 1955. Flying saucers were the stuff of comic books, not something that happened in your own backyard. A little embarrassed, Billy Ray dropped it, but as the last of the daylight faded, the peace was shattered by the sound of the family dog barking furiously, as if facing down its worst enemy. The real horror was just getting started. Around 8 p.m, the dog's frantic barking sent Lucky Sutton and Billy Ray Taylor back outside, this time with shotguns in hand. A pretty standard precaution for a dark night in the country. As they peered into the blackness, they saw a figure emerge from the edge of the trees. It was small, only about 3 or 4 feet tall. It had a huge round head, big pointed ears, and 2 enormous eyes that glowed with an eerie yellow light. Its body seemed to be made of a shiny silvery metal, and it floated just above the ground, swaying back and forth. Its arms were long, way too long for its body, and ended in hands tipped with sharp talon-like claws. The men just stared, completely stunned. One of them later said he had to look away 3 times. Sure, his eyes were playing tricks on him, but every time he looked back, it was still there. As if it knew it was being watched, the creature threw its arms up and started gliding toward the house. Terror took over. Lucky and Billy Ray raised their guns and fired. The sound was deafening, and the bullets slammed right into the creature's chest, but instead of falling, it made a bizarre sound, a metallic plink, like bullets ricocheting off a tin bucket. The force of the blast just flipped the creature over in a little somersault. It scrambled back to its feet, apparently unharmed, and scurried back into the shadows. Shaking, the 2 men ran back inside and bolted the door. They had barely started explaining what they'd seen when a face appeared in a side window. It was another one, its massive, glowing eyes peering in at them. Again they fired their shotgun, this time blasting right through the window screen, and again the shot just knocked the creature backward before it got up and vanished. That's when the terrifying reality hit them. There wasn't just one, they were surrounded. What came next was a relentless 4-hour siege. The night was a blur of these goblin-like beings appearing at windows and doors, their clawed hands scratching at the screens. The family, trapped inside, scrambled from room to room, a tiny militia fighting for their lives against an enemy that just didn't make sense. The creatures' movements were as weird as their appearance. They seemed to float or glide instead of walk. At one point, Billy Ray cautiously stepped back onto the porch, only to have a long, clawed hand reach down from the low roof and grab him by the hair. The women screamed as they yanked him back inside, just as Lucky Sutton ran out and blasted the creature on the roof. The shot knocked it off, but it just floated gently to the ground before disappearing. Another one was spotted in a nearby maple tree. Both men fired on it, and just like the others, it was knocked out of the tree but simply floated down and ran off. Again and again, they shot at these things. Every direct hit produced that same strange, metallic pinging sound. The bullets, which would have killed any animal, did nothing. The creatures would get knocked down, only to pop back up and reappear moments later at a different window. The family's only real defense was light. They noticed the creatures seemed to back away from the single, bare porch light. Inside, terror was mounting. The children were screaming. The adults, running low on ammo and adrenaline, were hitting their breaking point. They had fired through boxes of shells, riddling their own home with bullet holes, and it was all for nothing. The creatures just kept coming. After nearly 4 hours of non-stop terror, there was a sudden lull. The scratching stopped. The glowing eyes vanished from the windows. An eerie silence fell over the farmhouse, which was almost as unnerving as the chaos. The family was exhausted and almost out of ammunition. They knew they couldn't survive another attack. It was Glennie Langford, the family matriarch, who made the call. She reasoned that since the creatures hadn't seemed to be trying to kill them, just terrify them, they had to make a run for it. Their only hope was to get to the police in Hopkinsville, 8 miles down the road. What followed was a mad dash for the cars. All 11 of them, adults and terrified children, piled into 2 vehicles as fast as they could. Every shadow seemed to hold a monster. They slammed the doors, cranked the engines, and peeled out of there, racing toward the distant lights of town and the hope that someone, anyone, would believe them. This story is one of the most compelling in paranormal history, and we're just getting to the official investigation. If you find these dives into unexplained mysteries as fascinating as I do, please take a moment to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. Just after 11 p.m, 2 cars screeched to a halt at the Hopkinsville police station. A frantic crowd of adults and crying children burst through the door. "We need help," one of them pleaded. "We've been fighting them for nearly 4 hours. The police chief on duty, Russell Greenwell, was skeptical, to say the least. The story they were telling was completely insane. A spaceship, little glowing men, and a 4-hour gun battle. His first thought? They had to be drunk, but as he looked at them, he saw raw, genuine terror. Their fear was so real you could practically touch it. These people, all 11 of them, absolutely believed what they were saying. Realising this was no prank, Chief Greenwell organised a massive response. A convoy of more than 20 armed officers, including city police, state troopers, deputy sheriffs, and even 4 military police from the nearby Fort Campbell Army Base, descended on the Sutton farmhouse, ready for a firefight. They swept through the house and the surrounding woods, flashlights cutting through the dark, but what they found only made the mystery deeper. There was definitely evidence of a gunfight. The house was full of bullet holes, shotgun shells were scattered all over the yard, and a window screen was blasted to pieces. The family had clearly been shooting at something, but of the creatures, there was no sign, no bodies, no blood, no footprints, not a single shred of physical evidence to back up their story. They combed the area where the saucer supposedly landed, but found nothing. One officer did report seeing a strange, glowing green patch on the ground that faded before it could be collected, but that was it. After a 2-hour search, the police left, just as baffled as when they arrived. They couldn't find any proof of a hoax, but they sure couldn't find any little men either. Around 2:15 a.m, the police left, and the family, still shaken but reassured by the official presence, went back to the house to try and get some sleep. The quiet didn't last. Around 3:30 a.m, they came back. Glennie Langford was lying in bed when she saw one of their glowing faces appear in her bedroom window. The siege started all over again. This time though, The family didn't fight back. They were defeated. They just huddled together in terror until just before dawn, when the creatures finally vanished as the sun came up. That morning, the family abandoned the farmhouse for good. By then, their story had hit the papers. Story of spaceship, 12 little men probed today, blared the front page of the local paper. The media descended, reporters and looky-loos overran the property, and with the headlines came brutal ridicule. The family was called liars, hoaxers and drunks, even though the police had confirmed there was no alcohol involved. The US Air Force's official UFO investigation, Project Blue Book, gave the case a quick look. Their conclusion was swift and dismissive. The incident was a hoax. No further comment. For the family, the trauma of that night was now buried under public scorn and official denial. They had begged for help and got infamy instead. So if it wasn't aliens, what terrified 11 people for an entire night? In the years since, skeptics have offered a few theories. The most popular explanation is that the family misidentified a pair of great horned owls. Now, stick with me here. UFO researcher Joe Nickell points out that these large nocturnal birds have features that match the description surprisingly well. Great horned owls have big, round heads, bright yellow eyes that reflect light, and feather tufts that can look like pointed ears. They fly silently and can be very aggressive when defending a nest. Imagine seeing one swooping at you in the dim light of a single porch bulb, especially after you're already on edge from seeing a meteor. The theory is that fear and mass hysteria took over, with one person's panic spreading to the whole group. The metallic ping of the bullets, that could have just been shotgun pellets hitting a fence post or a metal bucket in the yard. The floating, that could have been the owls hopping and fluttering. But this theory has its own issues. These were country people familiar with local wildlife. Would they really mistake owls for aliens? And could an owl really take multiple shotgun blasts and just float away? The family always insisted that what they saw was not any kind of bird. Whatever happened that night, the Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter left a huge mark on pop culture. Ironically, the family consistently described the creatures as silvery or grey, but thanks to media misquotes, this case became one of the major popularisers of the term little green men. The story even inspired elements of Steven Spielberg's films, like E.T., and has been referenced in movies like Critters. For years, the family rarely spoke of the event because of the ridicule, but recently, younger generations, like Lucky Sutton's daughter, have worked to tell their family's side of the story, pushing back against the decades of mockery. And the local community, which once might have been a source of that ridicule, has now completely embraced its weirdest historical event. For a time, the town of Kelly even hosted an annual Little Green Men Days festival, celebrating the encounter and drawing tourists from all over. The night that brought a family so much shame has become a quirky source of pride for the whole region. So what really went down at that Kentucky farmhouse in 1955? Was it a genuine close encounter where a family defended themselves against visitors from another world? Or was it a textbook case of misidentification, a perfect storm of a meteor, a couple of angry owls, and mass panic? The evidence is perfectly split. On one hand, you have the unshakable, consistent testimony of 11 sober witnesses whose terror was real enough to bring out the army. On the other hand, you have a complete lack of physical proof. The Air Force called it a hoax, but the police on the scene were convinced the family saw something that scared them half to death. The Kelly-Hopkinsville encounter is a perfect mystery. It forces us to question how much we can trust our own eyes and to wonder what might be lurking just outside the glow of the porch light. What do you think happened? Was it goblins or owls? Let me know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip into the unexplained, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and maybe check out another one of our investigations right here. Thanks for watching and stay curious.